She told me she was staying at a friend's, but her Uber receipt showed my brother's house. I made coffee at 8 p.m. because I had work to finish. Client invoices, color-coding things that didn't deserve colors, banishing my thoughts with neat little labels. The mug was chipped. I'd been meaning to throw it out. The neighbor's TV bled through the wall, a game show audience clapping in unison. I told myself she was at Marta's, that I knew this because she said so, and because knowing is often just agreeing to stop asking questions. The impulse to scroll her location hit me like a sneeze. Sudden, reflexive, useless. We'd never shared locations. It had felt like trust. It also felt now like a trick you play on yourself when you don't want to know what you'd see. At 10:11 p.m., my phone chimed with the particular bubblegum ping of an email that wasn't work. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, another ping. Then one of those automated calendar nudges I always forget I set. A nudge to check receipts, a habit from when I used to submit expenses every Friday. I sighed and opened the email app, ready to delete whatever promo had slid past the spam filter. The subject line sat there, harmless. Trip completed. Your receipt is ready. I clicked, already thinking of my Uber from Tuesday, but the sender wasn't my account. It was hers, her Uber. I don't know why it had forwarded to me. Maybe that calendar rule I never fully understood. Maybe a stray toggle. My thumb hovered above the screen like it had its own slow heartbeat. The receipt blossomed into digital neatness. Map, timestamp, driver's name, fare breakdown in cheerful sans serif. And at the bottom, bold as a street sign. Destination, my brother's address. There are sounds that happen inside your body. A door shutting. A glass setting down too hard. A dog shaking off river water. I heard each of these, but nothing in the room moved. I put the phone face down, and the table seemed to tilt a degree. The coffee, sliding toward a lip that wasn't there. Then I flipped the phone back over, read the address again like maybe it would rearrange itself into Marta's street. It didn't. It was my brother's block, number, apartment. The small blue path on the map curled like a hook and sank into me. I called him. It rang and went to voicemail with his upbeat professional voice. The one he'd recorded when he still believed voicemail mattered. Hey, it's Dennis. Shoot me a text. I didn't. I stared at my own reflected face in the black screen, the way a person watches another person through a window and tries to decide whether to knock. Then I called her, straight to, can't take your call, not off, not dead, just inconvenient. I got up and started wiping the counter for no reason. The sponge left dark tracks on the laminate like a plane, mapping a holding pattern over a city that wouldn't clear it to land. I opened the cupboard, noticed the cinnamon was missing from its usual spot, and remembered I'd put it in a different place this morning, and decided that memory proved something about continuity. It didn't, but I needed something that didn't move when I touched it. I went to the window. Across the courtyard, someone smoked beneath a yellow kitchen bulb, exhaling patience. I wondered if he believed different stories than the ones I told myself. My mind did that undignified thing where it ran ahead to the worst possible ending and then looped back to fetch logic like a dog embarrassed to have chased a bus. She could be there for a dozen reasons, I told myself. My brother has a toolbox. My brother's building is closer to the nightlife. My brother's apartment has a view of the river people take photos of when they need to feel like a person looking at a river. She could be planning something for me. The word surprise patted across the room with wet paws. I tried to pet it, and it bit. At 10:47 p.m., I opened my email and forwarded the receipt to myself with a subject line I wouldn't lose. Why? Then I took a screenshot of the map and another of the timestamp and another of the driver's name like I could turn doubt into a dossier. Like pixels could keep me from unraveling. I found the calendar rule, forward travel receipts to shared folder, and disabled it with the petty flourish of a magistrate. I told myself it was about privacy, about boundaries, about not stalking through artifacts. It was also about control. About not wanting to be ambushed by truth twice. I typed Dennis's address into maps like it might refuse to autocomplete and therefore absolve me. It filled itself in, smug and accurate. The route from our place to his was 8 minutes by car, 13 if the lights hated you. I imagined the inside of his apartment, the blue-gray couch we'd assembled together 2 summers ago when he'd broken up with someone he should have broken up with sooner. The framed poster of a band we both loved, tilted 1 degree because he always hung things that way, claimed it added motion. The rug that shed. The kitchen where we'd argued once about which knives to buy. A friendly argument that ran on in-jokes so long we walked out with nothing and ate tacos in the parking lot like we'd done a brave thing. I put my keys in my pocket. Then I took them out. Then I put them back. I pictured myself showing up unannounced, pressing the buzzer, hearing the intercom crackle, the cello string twang of the elevator cable, the hallway smelling like soup and metal. I pictured the door opening and whatever expression would live on the face behind it. Hers or his or both. I pictured the movie plainness of confrontation. How it never feels like the scene you thought you'd be brave in. It feels like handing a stranger a letter and watching him decide whether to read it out loud. I sat back down. I wrote a note on a torn envelope. What I know. 10:08 p.m. Her Uber ends at Dennis's. What I don't, why I stuck it under the salt like it needed preserving. The coffee had cooled into something the color of doubt. I drank it anyway. I opened a new note in my phone and typed, "Ask tomorrow. Did you go to Dennis's?" Then I deleted it, because questions look like accusations when they're trapped in text. The neighbor's TV erupted in applause. Someone had won something and the room had decided to celebrate. At 11:32 p.m., I washed my face and noticed the guest towel, the one she prefers, was missing from the rack. Maybe she took it to Marta's. Maybe she left it at my brother's last time and forgot. I turned off the bathroom light, and the exhaust fan spooled down like a plane landing far, far away. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the radiator tick. I checked the door twice because rituals keep you from inventing new ones. I lay on the couch because the bed felt like a stage. I held the phone on my chest and tried not to check it. For a moment, I fell into that shallow, stupid sleep where your brain drips images like a faucet you forgot to tighten. At 1:04 a.m., I woke to another email ping. I didn't want to look. I looked anyway. A receipt from a bakery, time-stamped 10 minutes earlier, 2 almond croissants and a small hot chocolate. She always gets that when she's coming home late. A guilty sweetness. It had been charged to her card. The bakery was halfway between Dennis's building and ours. My heart did that heavy thud again. Not relief, not doom, just the fact of weight. At 1:23 a.m., the lock turned and the door opened with that tiny sigh our door makes, like it's grateful to be useful. She stepped in, toed her shoes off, and the soles left a soft crescent of light gray dust on the mat that didn't look like my neighborhood's dust. She held up the paper bag like a peace offering. Her smile tilted into apology before it reached her eyes. "You're up?" she whispered. I nodded and said, "Work," as if that were the lie that would make both of us decent. She smelled like cold air in a garage, exhaust and damp, like a winter coat left too long in the trunk. She put the bag on the counter and the bag sighed too, grease blooming at the corners. "How was Marta?" I asked, casual as a man checking a weather app. "Good," she said, the words skating just over the surface. "We talked too much." I looked at the scarf. It was gone from her neck, and for a second I imagined it hanging on a chair I knew too well. When she went to shower, she took her tote into the bathroom, a thing she never does. The water roared, then softened. I opened the paper bag and broke a croissant in half. It flaked perfectly, sweet and soft. A consolation engineered by someone who knows people. I ate it slowly and felt none of the designed comfort. I pulled out my phone, opened the email again, stared at the root like it could confess if I kept my eyes on it longer than it could keep its story straight. I saved the PDF to a folder named Receipts, then renamed the folder Receipts-Keep. Then I wrote a single sentence in notes, because I needed something small and honest to anchor me to the floor. I am not crazy, and I am not going to explode. The next morning felt staged, like someone had rearranged my apartment into a set that was supposed to resemble my life but missed a few props. She came out of the shower humming softly, hair wet. Her tote folded neatly by the couch. On the counter sat the empty paper bag with a faint shadow of grease, as if evidence could evaporate if you left it out long enough. She kissed me quickly, grabbed her scarf again, and started scrolling her phone with a too casual thumb. I asked how Marta was. She said, "Good, she's stressed about work," without looking up. My stomach coiled because Marta doesn't even have a job right now. She quit in May. The word work hit the floor like a glass I wasn't allowed to pick up. I nodded, pretended not to notice, and took a long sip of coffee I didn't want. My phone buzzed with a work email, and for a moment I thought it might be another Uber receipt sneaking through. Nothing. But when I checked my inbox, I noticed older receipts filed in the same folder, ones I'd ignored for weeks. I scrolled, pulse climbing. 3 times in the last month, the receipts ended at the same address. Dennis's, always late, always on nights she'd said she was with Marta. My throat felt thick, like I'd swallowed the wrong pill and it was stuck halfway down. She left with another light kiss, this one on the crown of my head as if I were the child she was tucking into bed. The door closed. Silence rushed back. I opened my laptop and laid the receipts out like a deck of cards. Different drivers, different times, same destination. I thought of her scarf, the dust on her shoes, the tote never leaving her side. Suddenly, the pattern seemed louder than any confession. I needed perspective. I walked to the corner store, bought gum I didn't want, came back and noticed something by the bike rack near our entrance. A navy scarf, identical to the one she'd worn, damp from dew, caught in the spokes of a rusted bike. I picked it up. My chest hollowed out. I knew that bike. It belonged to one of the tenants in Dennis's building. I'd seen it leaning there during a barbecue last summer. The scarf wasn't proof by itself, but it sat in my hands like a whispered confirmation. I texted Marta, half expecting no reply. "How's work going?" Her answer came 5 minutes later. "Hectic. Lots of deadlines. I'm barely keeping up." My jaw locked. She wasn't just covering for Alina. She was parroting her lines. I typed back, "You quit in May, remember?" and deleted it before hitting send. No use showing my cards yet. I spent the afternoon pretending to work. Every email I drafted was a knot of words. Every spreadsheet a mirror of how unbalanced I felt. When Dennis finally called back, my pulse skipped. "Hey, sorry I missed you last night. What's up?" His voice was easy, practiced, too bright. I swallowed. "Nothing urgent. Just wanted to check in." He laughed softly. "Good man. Let's catch up soon. Maybe dinner." My ears burned because his words sat there like a promise wrapped in tinfoil, shiny but hollow. That night, I couldn't stop replaying the memory of a family dinner 2 months ago. Alina had excused herself to the kitchen to help Mom. Dennis had followed minutes later. When I'd gone in to grab drinks, they both jumped, like I'd opened the wrong door at the wrong time. Back then, I'd brushed it off. Tonight, it felt like a puzzle piece clicking into place. I needed something beyond coincidences and scarves. That's when I remembered my neighbor across the hall, Alex, a quiet guy, an IT security consultant who once bragged about tinkering with the building's shared camera system. For fun, I caught him in the hall, hands full of groceries. I asked casually if he still had access to the camera logs by the garage. He raised an eyebrow. "Looking for a package thief?" "Something like that," I said, my smile stiff. He nodded slowly. "I can check. You'll owe me a beer." My chest tightened. That beer might cost me more than I realized. I returned to my apartment, sat in the dark, and listened to the faint hum of the fridge. The receipts waited in their folder, the scarf lay folded on the table, and my phone glowed with unread messages. I felt like I was standing at the edge of something. Either I'd built a tower of paranoia out of scraps, or I was finally seeing the structure that had been there all along. The only thing worse than being wrong was being right. The following evening, I forced myself to act normal. She breezed in from yoga class, hair tied back, cheeks flushed in a way that didn't look like exercise. She dropped her tote on the chair and stretched theatrically. The kind of move you'd do in front of a mirror if you wanted to look casual. "Traffic was insane," she said. Like that explained the hour gap between when class ended and when she came through the door. I nodded, pretending to scroll my phone. I had Alex's number saved now, a lifeline in my pocket. Later, when she was brushing her teeth, I texted him, "Any chance you checked the logs?" His reply came fast. "Yep, phone with MAC address 8C:3B, matches her model, connected to Wi-Fi outside Dennis's building 3 times this month. Nighttime." I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. Proof. Not a suspicion, not a scarf, not a half memory, actual digital fingerprints. My hand trembled as I deleted the message thread, heart pounding like I'd just committed a crime. I thought about confronting her right then. Toothbrush foaming, water running, the mirror fogging with her reflection. But what would she say? She'd laugh, she'd deny, she'd flip it on me. She was good at that, making me feel like the paranoid one, the overthinker. I told myself to wait, collect more, build a case solid enough that even her practiced calm couldn't bend it. The next day, I tried my brother. "Let's grab a drink," I suggested. He hesitated, half a second too long, before saying, "Yeah, sure, maybe this weekend." Busy with work. Right now, Dennis was never too busy for beer. I pictured him in that apartment, her scarf on his couch, her laugh spilling across the rug we'd chosen together. My throat tightened. That night, Marta messaged me first. Just 3 words. "Don't push this." I stared at them, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Don't push what? She didn't say Alina's name, didn't say Dennis, but the silence around her words screamed louder than anything. I typed, "Push what exactly?" But she never replied. The little scene checkmark taunted me until I locked the phone and shoved it under a pillow. On Thursday, I went by Dennis's building, telling myself it was coincidence. I pedaled slowly past, heart hammering. His lights glowed warm in the window. As I coasted by, I heard something. Laughter, muffled through walls, but hers. I froze, brakes squealing, pulse in my throat. For a second, I considered buzzing his intercom, demanding to be let in. My hand even reached for my phone. But I couldn't do it. Not yet. I circled back once more. The laughter had gone. When I finally knocked, there was no answer. I stood there in the hallway, listening to the low hum of someone's TV, the smell of soup wafting from another door. My knuckles ached from clenching. The silence behind his door felt deliberate, like they were standing on the other side, holding their breath until I left. I went home, dropped my keys on the counter, and collapsed on the couch. The ceiling looked lower than usual, pressing down. I opened the folder of receipts and stared at them like they might arrange themselves into a confession. I typed a sentence in my notes app. Deadline for truth. This weekend. It looked childish on the screen, but I needed it. A line in the sand. If they weren't going to tell me, I'd force the truth out myself. And when it came, I wasn't sure if it would break me or set me free. Family dinner was the kind of ritual that was supposed to keep us glued together. Mom fussing with the roast, Dennis pouring wine like a seasoned host, Alina slipping into her chair with an easy smile that seemed rehearsed. I sat across the table with my hands clasped, pretending I didn't feel the receipts burning a hole in my pocket. The air buzzed with small talk about work, about weather, about the neighbor's new dog. I nodded, chewed, swallowed, but every sound felt muffled, like I was eating underwater. Halfway through the meal, I couldn't stand it. I put my fork down, pulled out my phone, and laid it flat on the table. The receipts lit up in sharp white against the wood. The address highlighted. 3 rides, I said. My voice was too calm. All to Dennis's. Same nights you told me you were at Marta's. The silence that fell was thick enough to choke on. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Dennis leaned back slowly, eyes narrowing, while Alina's lips parted in shock. Too much shock. The kind you wear like a mask. What are you talking about? She whispered. I scrolled, swiped, showed the scarf photo, the Wi-Fi logs Alex had given me, the timestamps lined up in neat rows. I'm not guessing anymore, I said. I'm done guessing. Alina's eyes filled with quick, glittering tears. She grabbed Dennis's sleeve, then pulled her hand back as if realizing too late how it looked. I was planning something, she stammered. For you, a surprise. I went to Dennis's because I didn't know how else to. She broke off, breath hitching. Dennis finally spoke, voice measured, soothing like he was negotiating a client deal. Look, it's not what you think. Yes, she came over. Yes, we talked, but it was about you. She wanted my advice on how to propose something meaningful. We got carried away, that's all. The word carried made me flinch. Mom jumped in before I could speak. See, there's an explanation. You've always been so suspicious. Dennis would never betray you. He's your brother. Her voice wavered with panic, with the desperate need to believe in the old picture of her sons. I sat back, staring at both of them. My chest felt hollow, my ribs like scaffolding around nothing. A surprise? I repeated. The words soured in my mouth. Alina leaned closer, tears streaking her cheeks. It was stupid. I shouldn't have lied. But it wasn't about him. It was for you. Her hand twitched toward mine, then stopped. And then, at the worst possible moment, my phone buzzed on the table. A new message from Marta. One voice note, no text. My pulse slammed. I pressed play. Her voice filled the silence. I can't keep covering anymore. It wasn't about a proposal. It wasn't one time. It's been going on for months. I'm sorry. The room froze. Dennis's face drained of color. Alina gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Mom shook her head violently, muttering, No, no, no. I let the words hang there. Marta's voice replaying in my head like a bell you can't unring. The truth wasn't just out. It was undeniable, lodged in the room with us, daring anyone to pretend otherwise. And for the first time in weeks, I felt steady, because now it wasn't just me seeing the cracks. It was all of us, staring at the collapse together. I asked Marta to come over the next day. She hesitated on the phone, her voice tight like she was holding her breath. I don't want to be in the middle, she said. You already are, I answered, and hung up before I could beg. When she arrived, she wouldn't look me in the eye at first. She twisted the strap of her purse until the leather squeaked. Alina sat across the room, stiff-backed, arms folded like armor. Dennis leaned against the counter, pretending calm, but tapping his glass with one finger over and over. Mom hovered in the doorway, pale and trembling. Marta, I said quietly, tell them what you told me. Her eyes darted to Alina, then to Dennis, then finally to me. It wasn't one time, she said, voice shaking. It's been months, since early spring. They didn't know how to stop. I thought it would end on its own. I thought if I kept covering, it wouldn't blow up like this. The silence after her words was sharper than any scream. Alina's face crumpled, but instead of apology, what came out was defense. You never asked me what I needed, she spat, glaring at me. You were so busy with your own life, your own routines. Dennis listened to me. He understood. My chest burned. So you chose betrayal over conversation? My voice cracked, raw. You didn't need to be understood. You needed to be entertained, and you dragged my brother into it. Dennis straightened, anger flashing. Don't make it sound like she forced me. He stopped, jaw clenched, as if realizing the words would only tighten the noose. Marta's voice cut in, brittle but firm. I watched you both lie to him, over and over. Every excuse, every cover story. You didn't care how small it made me feel, feeding him your lies. You just wanted me as your alibi. Her eyes brimmed with tears, and I can't do it anymore. I turned to Alina. Remember that gift last month? The headphones you said you spent hours choosing? She nodded, lips trembling. Marta told me you picked them out with Dennis, together. Like I wasn't even part of the equation. Alina buried her face in her hands. I didn't know how to stop, she whispered. And then came the final blow. I'd tracked down the Uber driver, just to confirm. He'd agreed to talk, neutral, detached. His words replayed in my head. Yeah, I dropped her there a few times. The brother usually met her out front. Sometimes they'd laugh, carry groceries together. They seemed close. I looked at Dennis, my voice flat. Even the driver knew more than I did. Mom finally broke, her sobs filling the room. Dennis looked down, shame painting his face gray. Alina reached for me with trembling fingers. Please, we can fix this, she begged. I stepped back, shaking my head. You can't fix something you burned to the ground. For the first time, neither of them had a word left to say, and the silence between us was louder than all their lies combined. The fallout came like a slow-motion collapse. Dennis texted me the next morning. Can we talk? Just us. I didn't reply. Alina slipped a handwritten note under my door. 3 pages of apologies that read more like explanations, littered with phrases like, I didn't mean for it to happen, and you have to believe me, it wasn't about you. I folded it once and dropped it in the trash without reading it again. I ended the lease on our apartment within a week. The landlord raised his eyebrows at the suddenness, but I didn't care. I packed methodically, box by box, while Alina hovered, trying to wedge herself into the empty spaces. She begged, promised, even tried guilt. You're throwing away everything we built. I kept my hands moving, taping shut the boxes that still smelled faintly of her perfume. Dennis tried too. He cornered me outside Mom's house, his face tired, shoulders slumped. I screwed up, he admitted. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could handle it, keep it separate, and then he trailed off, looking at the ground. You're my brother. That has to mean something. I stared at him, searching for even a fragment of the man I'd grown up with. The one who taught me to ride a bike, who shared jokes across the dinner table. It does mean something, I said finally. It means you were the one person who wasn't supposed to do this. I walked away before he could answer. Mom kept calling, begging me to forgive, to remember family is family. But family, I realized, isn't a shield against accountability. It's not a hall pass for betrayal. I loved her, but I wouldn't let her rewrite the story to make it easier for everyone else. Weeks passed. I moved into a smaller apartment with bare white walls that echoed at night. It was quiet, but the quiet didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like oxygen. I made coffee in the mornings without wondering who else's cup I should pour. I slept through the night without jolting awake to phantom email pings. Alina sent one last message. An email this time, long and rambling. She wrote about regret, about wishing she could go back, about how Dennis had already moved on, and she felt abandoned. I didn't reply. Leaving her in silence felt like the only true response left. Months later, I stood at the mailbox outside my building, flipping through junk flyers and bills. Nothing urgent, nothing explosive, just the dull hum of a normal life. I realized then how much weight had lifted. The absence of deceit, of secrets hiding in receipts and scarves. The memory of her laughter behind Dennis's door still stung, but it no longer defined me. I wasn't the man caught between their lies anymore. I was the man who walked out, who drew a line, who chose self-respect over chaos. And as I climbed the stairs with a small bag of groceries in one hand and my keys in the other, I felt something I hadn't in months. Steady. The kind of steady that comes when the noise dies down and you can finally hear yourself again.